Rate my team, roast my team, pimp my team. I'm about to look at a bunch of fantasy teams and give my advice on what they should do for round one sides. First up here, we have Cash, and this is the worst fantasy side I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely shocking. We wanted to start low and sort of move the bar up as we went along here. Yeah, Brandon Smith, Tao Malolo, Flagler, Twile. Look, Twile's a good option there. Eisner, who you could make a case for. The Brooks and Arthur halves combo. It's brutal. It's brutal. Cash, I would say I'm not going to say delete the app, but definitely delete this side and make a new one, mate. So, guys, in terms of how you join this, I've got a link in the description here, but you sign up for the Casual Athletes WAP, jump into the Discord channels, and once you have signed up on WAP, you get access to private channels where I give that one-to-one advice on how to improve your team, trades, start sits, all that, and you get into this Pimp My Team segment too. First up here, real first team, because Cash is kind of joking around there. Muzz with Riley here. We've got a pretty solid side. Aaron Clark at hooker is a very brave option to start with, I'm going to say. So I don't think Aaron Clark gets the minute to probably hop off that. Fisher Harris, I like as a pod. We like Horsburgh and Terrell May. There's going to be a lot of repeats here, but Gus Crichton is not one that's repeating a lot. He's a bit of a pod. It's a top tier second row to start the year with, which I actually quite like. Moving through, Bird, Lucas, Edwards. Edwards is a bit of a pod. With Cleary back, I'm not sure, but Luai leaving means it could be sort of big upside play there, so I don't hate it. And then on the bench, yeah, we've got a few guys here, so a bit of money in White, Mamazelis, Munster, these sorts of guys. Royce Hunt on the bench there. Duffy could be one that sneaks in over Toya potentially. This is a good side. I would probably move Aaron Clark on personally, and I'm not a huge fan of Dylan Edwards to start the year, but it's totally up to you there. So overall, I'd say this is probably it's a good side. I'm going to say an 8 out of 10. Couple of question marks for me, but really solid side. Moving through to Tim Tam 778 with the 1,000-point roster. Let's see this team because Hopgood's a bit of a pod here. We've got a lot of the same sorts of guys. We've seen a bit of like Papali'i, Bateman. We need to see the minutes. We need to see the role for them. Cleary, Captain Munster. Bradman Best, big pod. I want to see that Newcastle trial game, and I want to see him combining with Kalen Ponga on design plays. That's the big thing I'm looking for there because right now I do have Best and Ponga myself as well. Pappenhausen's a guy who has averaged 50 plus in the past. Can he get back to that this year? That's a big question. And then the bench here is a bit light. So Mark Nawaka ni Tawase. Nawa, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get this by round one. He's a weapon, though. He's a great player. Like, gets up in the air, but I'm not sure about him for fantasy. I don't trust the Roosters round one, so I wouldn't start him on the bench there. And then Moser, I don't trust for minutes either. So I think Sandon Smith, Nafu White, probably Geimer, and then maybe make space for Duffy. They'd be my four that I'd try to start on the interchange bench there. Overall, this side's pretty good. There's a lot of pods here. It's a bit more like my side, but a couple of big differences. I'll throw this a 7.5 out of 10. I think once you improve the bench, you jump to about an 8.5. So you've got a couple of quick moves to make, and you'll be in a very good position with this side. Now, Veverest, Brisbane Broncos fan, I think. Yeah, look, we've got a few Payne Haas's, which is probably where the good part of this team ends. Reece Walsh, I guess, could have a big year, but the Pierre Kura bench. I mean, I was floating around a 5 out of 10 for you here, and then the Pierre Kura bench really threw me off. This is a crime against fantasy, this roster. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10 just because I think the Broncos will be better this year, but it was very close to a 1 out of 10. And then your real roster, right? So I actually love seeing a joke team, by the way. I've seen a few that have been sent through where it's just Luke Brooks at half by himself or just Cleary, right? It's pretty good. But this roster here, we've got Tommy Gilbert again. We got to keep an eye on those minutes for round one. Papali'i, Bateman, big questions on them too. Then Jareem Buller at wing fullback is a bit of a pod here. I don't think he has that leap in him for fantasy. He would have to play very good footy because he sort of floated around that 40 mark, but they have been a wooden spoon team. So maybe they improve. Maybe he does jump up. I'm just a little bit iffy about it. I don't like the base stats. I'm a big Metcalf fan, so I like that you got him on the bench there. Keep an eye on round 2 bye. So Munster and Howarth, they'll both be out, which means you have to cover them. But overall, I think this is a pretty nice side. Pretty well balanced. I'm going to give this one... There's some question marks that hold me back. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 here. I think if all the questions are answered in the right way, so if Gilbert, Bateman, Papali'i, Best, Buller, all these guys sort of come up the way you're thinking, then it will be a much better team, but 8 out of 10 for now. And then just a quick reminder on how to join, guys. So you can join, link below, sign up on the WAP. You just send your team through on Discord. We can chat there. I give a lot of written reviews as well, but this is a weekly video where we go through team reviews and it becomes Rate My Trades. during the season as well. So you can send through your trades and I sort of break those down and give my recommendations on trades too. Now, Jake Worth 07, pretty nice side here. Again, sort of similar middle forwards that we're seeing with a lot of the teams in hooker. The edge back row seems to be where we're getting a few pods. So Jacob Preston comes through. Preston has big upside. Biz is a massive Preston fan. He thinks he could be the number one edge back row in fantasy this year, which I can see it on paper. Dylan Lucas is another one at center. It's a bit of a pod, really exciting. And you've gone the Ponga Marzu combo. So, yeah, look, I'm in the same mind as you. I think Newcastle to start the year, especially on that left edge, is very attractive. Very attractive. I would be tempted to start with all three. So go Dylan Lucas, Bradman Best, Greg Marzu, and then Ponga. Just that run of fixtures to start. I think they could get super hot to start the year. And you won't keep them all year, but for a while they'll be solid. Marzu can average 50 as well. So I like that as a pod. Then, yep, Horsburgh on the bench, really like there too. We've got, Geimer, Duffy. Look, Mark, I would probably sub out for Sandon Smith if he's starting round one. But other than that, this is a pretty clean roster. You've got a few pods here. I like the look of them. I like the Newcastle thing. I'm probably a bit biased on that for some reason. I'm into Newcastle this year. I'm actually getting the Knighted on the show, by the way. So he's a Newcastle expert. He's got a Newcastle cave at his place. Absolute legend. To break down the trial games from Newcastle closer to round one, because he's a bit of a newie expert. We can sort of break that down for fantasy. But this side here, I'm going to go a 9 out of 10. I think this is a rock solid roster. I think it's really good. Just keep an eye on your cheapies. Make sure they're guys who are playing, but it's a pretty nice deep forward pack, and the back line has big upside. It's a bunch of guys here who can score massive on their day. So I'm a fan, 9 out of 10. Zinger Stacker, what a burger and what a team. All right, let's go through this team. Harry Grant is a bit of a pod. Now, keep an eye on Melbourne Storm. By round 2, you've got Harry Grant, Cameron Munster, and Ryan Pappenhausen. I think you have to get rid of one. Because they're all not going to play round 2. If you threw in a couple of injuries, for example, then you're totally cooked. So I would sell one of them. Really, they're all pretty good options. So Harry Grant's undervalued. Cam Munster, undervalued, but a bit injury prone. Pappenhausen, less undervalued, but I feel like his pathway up is a bit cleaner. I'd probably sell Pappenhausen, though. Out of this 3, I'd probably sell Pappenhausen and keep Grant and Munster. Outside of that, you've got McLean at center there starting, which if he starts, it's a good option, but that's really iffy. I would say he's not the favorite to win that spot. Then, look, the rest of the team is really strong. The bench is quite deep as well. Probably move Toya in over Hunt. I'm not a big Hunt fan. I'll try and get Duffy in over Cole. But outside of that, pretty good side. I'm going to say it's a 7 out of 10 just because of that Storm issue right now. If you can fix that Storm issue and nut out Jesse McLean there at the starting center spot, I think you're in a really good position. But you'll just have to sort out the moving on Pappenhausen or someone like that. Paddy Carrigan is the GOAT, absolute legend. Has been on the Discord channel for a long time and always good banter, always a funny guy. So let's see your team, mate, because you're funny, but are you a good fantasy player? Nat Butcher and Kelma Talangi in the edge back row spots is very different to most teams. If Butcher gets a starting 80-minute role, it's exciting, but there's a bit of talk that Victor Radley might get the edge role and Butcher might play a bit of lock. But then Suo Wong is named to start at lock round this trial game, so it could be dicey. I'm basically saying no to Butcher is my answer there. Outside of that, it's a pretty good forward pack. It's a strong back line. Have too many issues with Melbourne, only 2 Melbourne guys there. Then Corey Pakes could start round 1, but could play less minutes than you expect there. I mean, you're a Broncos fan, so you might be more across this. I reckon he's a bit dicey. If he starts, you probably have to get him, but he's just a dicey player because Moses is going to steal a bunch of minutes there. Then, look, Metcalf. I think Metcalf's a must-have, by the way, guys. Get on Metcalf. Rest of the bench is pretty good here too. I'll give this team a 7.5 out of 10. But now I think you need to sort out Nat Butcher issue, and I think the bench is a bit dicey. I think you got a lot of guys who are going to sit there and not make enough cash for you. That's my concern with a guy like Corey Pakes or Jesse Arthurs or a few of these other players here as well. Then we got HG, CHNB, MB, VVV. So let's see this team. Mitch Barnett's in there, bit of a pod. We got those same back rows we were talking about before. Sandon Smith in the starting side. Do you have a backup half is probably my question. You got Metcalf and Duffy. All right, yeah, so you're pretty good for the halves depth. Centers are good. Wing fullback, I don't mind that. I've run some teams where I've had that Ponga, Yongi, Munro combination. Munro won't be a fantasy beast, but I think outside of Latrell and an improved south side, he'll be reasonably decent in terms of his average because he'll have those big spike games where he scores a few tries. Overall for this team, It's a deep bench. The bench is huge. So Horsburgh, Metcalf, Gilbert, and Duffy is a massive bench. I'm actually quite liking this team. If things go your way, right? So Barnett, Papali'i, Bateman, there's big questions on those guys, but Mama Zealous, Sandon Smith as well for round one. If things go your way, this is a 9 out of 10 team, but there's too many questions for me to give you a 9 out of 10. So I'm going to have to go 8.5 out of 10. I'm a big fan of the roster construction. Keep an eye on trial games. That's the big thing here. We've got Cool Guy Sack. So let's see Cool Guy's team. All right, rolling through the forward pack. It's a good pack. It's a good halves pairing. Vilea was named to start in that center spot, which is an interesting pod. And you've got Garrick there as well. Latrell and Ponga at wing fullback. So you've gone very heavy on the outside backs here. And then the bench is a bit lighter. I'm not sure about Martin from Canberra. I don't know if he'll get meaningful minutes. I think he could be a bit of a plotter. Look, I think you have to have Jack Bird. So I think you have to add Jack Bird. I would get Jack Bird over Vilea personally. You could do Jack Bird over Garrick if you wanted to as well and free up some cash. But you have to get Jack Bird if you're starting at lock. And then I'd start Yongi over Mark. Then Royce Hunt, I'd move him out and bring Sandon Smith in. It's an interesting team. You've gone really different, so I do like it. I'm going to go 7.5 out of 10. I think there's a few changes you have to make, and you have to get Jack Bird. He's an absolute must-have. Demetrius Wong. Now let's see if you get Sewell Wong close to round one. If you got his name in your team name. But rolling through this team, it's good center middle forwards. Yep, good edge back rows if they get the role. Good halves, good center pairing. It's very cheap center pairing, which I'm not a hater of. I think if Toya can keep that spot, that's fine. Pricey wing fullbacks. So okay, we've put money there. Metcalf, Munro, Duffy, Horsburgh. Yeah. Whenever I get to a team, I go through a team and I feel like they're a bit light in the starting team. Go to the bench and there's a Horsburgh sitting there. So to go, okay, yeah, that feels all right. I'd move Sandon Smith into the interchange role over Tyrone Munro, 100%. I think you just round one, you start your halves and you start your big minute players, and you sort of bench those wingers. And if you want to bring a winger in, you bring them in for one of the guys in the starting team. But overall, really good side. I like the balance of this team. If things go your way, again, some question marks. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10. I think this is a clean roster. I think the Jezewski inclusion is interesting, so he may start round one. Just keep an eye on that. But if he starts round one, doesn't get more than 40 minutes, he'll be an absolute disaster. So could be bad, could be good. That's the risk you take with Jack Jezewski. All right, 212-08306. Coming in with Jaden Brayley at hooker. Okay, I'm going to hit you with some of the interesting calls here. Jaden Brayley, Jai Arrow, Angus Crichton, Nico Hines as captain. Katoni Staggs. Then we got Reece Walsh, big difference maker there. Takiaho, Liam Henry. Okay, there's a lot to talk about in this team. Rolling through, Jaden Brayley, he's starting in this trial game coming up, but he needs 80 minutes to be relevant. So if he's looking like getting the 80-minute role, love Jaden Brayley. If anything other than that, don't like it at all. Jai Arrow, if he can come back and play the prop role and stay fit, that's the big question. Then he is pretty effective, but they do have a pretty congested forward pack. So I'm not team Jai Arrow, but I can see a path for him to be decent. Probably more a guy you could target in a draft league as opposed to your classic team. Angus Crichton, big pod. He's the best back row for a reason. I was talking to Jay-Z on the pod recently. He was talking about it as well. And we sort of came to the conclusion that if the Roosters aren't good, it actually might be good for him. He's not that sort of classic hole running back rower. He's more a crab runner, an offloader, a guy who creates for himself. So that's a really nice option. Nico Hines as captain is a big pod. The question is, does he share the kicking with Braden Trindle, or does he take over as the dominant half? If the latter and he takes over, fantastic option. If he's sharing kicking, I'm not a fan at all. Katoni Staggs, are you viewing a leap here? Like, I'm probably not a big Staggs guy, but Senators do sometimes just take the leap and have a massive year. So I can see why you take that gamble with Brisbane looking better. Same with Reece Walsh. Liam Henry, I don't think he gets the minutes to be relevant, but his role should increase somewhat with the loss of James Fisher-Harris. So potentially Liam Henry could be the beneficiary. I'm not thinking by enough to grab him, but again, it's an upside play, and I like that you're going away from the crowd. Takiaho comes in. I think he'll be a small minute player. He's pretty old now, but he'll be effective. So maybe he does earn more minutes. Look, overall, real pod side, I'm going to go 7 out of 10 right now. A lot of questions for me. After trial games this week, I think we'll know a lot more, but I do like where your head's at. You're making some big pod calls, and I'm a fan of that sort of moving. Just a quick reminder too, I put a few of these through this. But if you do want to join, want to get your team rated, link is below. Basically, you jump on the WAP. There's a 10-day free trial as well, so you can come in, get your team rated, see if you like the community. And then if you don't like it, that's okay. All good. And if you do, you can stick around for the whole year and we can sort of talk trades, buys, holds, sells, traps, captains, all that sort of jazz. The other thing is if you're in head-to-head leagues, especially for cash, I can sort of help you out with who you play, who you start sit, and having a look at your opponent as well and sort of maximizing your chances of winning those games. All right, Anthony's Troopers. So for Anthony's Troopers, and Anthony's a bit of a legend. We did a review of Anthony's team on TikTok and Instagram as well. But it's a big one. Terrell May is captain. That was the big thing I was sort of stuck on when I posted it on TikTok. Terrell May's captain has the potential to score 30 points or 100 points in round one. If Terrell May gets the minutes consistently, he'll be the best player in fantasy. Now, when I say the minutes, I mean like 65 minutes a game. Like he would be absolutely unstoppable with 65 minutes a game. Will he get 65 minutes a game? Probably not. It's probably going to be more like 50 minutes for 60 points. That's kind of how I see it, which puts him a bit of a tier below Nathan Cleary. But at the same time, he could pop off round one. No one knows. So I'm not against the pod. Olakwatu is a guy who could make that leap and be one of the top back rows. So I don't hate that either. Bradman Best will Penasini big pods. Sarko has averaged 50 in the past. It was about a 38 last year. So he'd have to bounce back pretty significantly. I don't see it happening outside of Herbie Farmworth, but you can roll the dice on that. Turbo Pong has big money there. I can't remember what I gave this to. I think I gave it about an 8 out of 10. But I just like the pods. It's a very hard one to rate because it's very poddy. And, you're going away from the crowd here. You've got some balls. You're brave, which I respect. And it's a very fun team to look at. All right. Buy high, sell low from Simster. So, Simster, let's see. Carrigan as vice captain is interesting. Bit of a pod there. We got the old halves pairing from Penrith, Cleary and Luai, Bradman Best, Jack Bird, Ruben Garrick's in the team, Reece Walsh, and Zach Lomax. Okay, so you've gone Megapod wing fullback. These are wing fullbacks that aren't in many teams, and they're at reasonable percentages in the app. But for serious fantasy players, there's not too many who have these guys. They do have the potential to go on runs and be fantastic, though. So I don't know. I mean, going through them, Ruben Garrick, he should be value. He had a few HIAs last year. Price knocked down by that. Reece Walsh, he could make a leap and be better this year. So that's pretty exciting. And Zach Lomax, moving back to center, is not the best. But at Parramatta, we'll see what kind of style Riles plays. I've got the feeling it'll be more expansive. So that could be good news for Zach Lomax. Look, overall, I wouldn't start with those three. But at the same time, I see why you're doing it. And I can respect the pod. In terms of the bench here, you probably need to fix up some of these emergency guys. So Healy and Puru, I'm not sure if they'll get meaningful minutes and be useful on your bench there. So just keep an eye on teams closer to round one. You might have to free up some cash and move those across. Paddy Carrigan moving to prop as well. I'm not a big fan of, but you never know what happens with the new coach, Madge Maguire, coming in. Loffy for Queensland, Titans on top. So yeah, Loffy Camperera, what a beast. Too bad he's not in your fantasy side, but you've got Keeney there. So that's exciting. Let's start at the bottom here. So Keeney, bottom left, he's on the buy round one, which means you're loopholing as your team stands, and that's Tyrone Munro who will come into the team. Or I think Purdue is only center. I mean, he might be wing fullback as well. But yeah, you've got a bit of a loophole running there, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, look, I don't mind the Keeney play, by the way. Keeney or Campbell, I think they're big pods. And the more time goes along, the more I think, you know what, Jaden Campbell partnering AJ Brimson, he might do a bunch of kicking. He might be unstoppable this year in fantasy. I actually might start with Jaden Campbell. I'm warming to Jaden Campbell. All I need is like one trial game that kind of proves my point, and I'll be jumping on Jaden Campbell. But for this team, I like Keeney as well. He's got that big upside. Backline is fantastic. Halves pairing is strong. Into the forward pack, Gilbert, Nafu, White, a bit dicey for minutes, but we'll see what trials show for them. Horsburgh, Sandon Smith, Tamale, and Munro is a good bench, but Tamale isn't guaranteed to play for round two. So Albert Hopewadi can't play round one, might slide back into the team. That's a bit of a dicey one. I'm going to try not to start with Tamale, but if you have to, you have to, right? Overall for this team, I would say probably a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a good side. There's a few questions here from guys that I'm not sure about the minutes on, and you're going to really be trusting them as starters. So it's a bit of a dicey situation to be in. All right, Birdo is him from Aussie. So Aussie, let's see this. And by the way, guys, when I give ratings, you don't want to be trying to change the team to get to a 9 out of 10 this early in the year. This early in the year, you kind of just want to be picking your main guys, like finding out who your pods are, playing around with roster construction. There's going to be a lot of information that comes to light over the next 2 weeks. So don't be too worried if you're a 7 or a 6 or a 9 or whatever. It's more, I'm just sort of rating the confidence I have in that team as of today. And the ratings just before round one, they're very important. But leading in, it's kind of just a bit more guidance. I'll talk you through my thinking on these guys. And, if you have a pod that I don't like, stick with your pod. Stick with your pod. If you've got your own logic and you believe it, stick with it. Like, I don't know any better than you do this early in the year. So you like your pods are going to win your fantasy, basically. That's the advice I've got for you there. So for Berto SCM, Aussie's team is looking good. Yeah, I like the middle forwards. Mama Zealous, everyone's got him, but we'll see what happens there. Barnett, Papali'i, yeah, look, Burton's in the team. I mean, Burton had to be in the team, right? So he's locked in. Burton could be one of those top halves this year. He's just got that potential, right? Great running game, great kicking game, does the goal kicking, and the dog side should be improving each year. So, yeah, Burton, I like the upside of there. Good center pairing with Bradman Best and Jack Bird. Yongi Ponga Munro, I like that little trio there. It saves a lot of money for the rest of your team. Gilbert, Metcalf, Duffy, and Smith. And 1 sec, I'm just going to get a bit of light. And we're back. Oh, motion sensing lights are a disaster. But keep on rolling through here. McLean, Hunt. Yeah, look, the end of the bench is all right too. Look, it's a balanced side. It's a really nicely balanced side. I'm going to go 9 out of 10. I just like the balance of this team. I think that you've spread your money out really nicely. I think you've prioritized in a way that I like to prioritize as well in terms of where you allotted your cash. I think the Burton pod's really exciting. Bradman Best is a fun pod there too. Barnett's a bit of a pod as well. And you just sort of made a few moves that could potentially move you ahead. So, yeah, really good side here, Aussie. DC's Footy Fiddlers. So, rolling through to this team, it's Jacob Preston is a big pod. So, I'll basically, guys, as we go through this, I'll probably start just mentioning the really important players and, the pods. Rather than just going through every single player. So Jacob Preston is a big pod here, big upside to be the top second rower this year. Latrell Mitchell, Kellen Ponga, the double wing fullback, it has a massive upside this year, but it is very expensive. Latrell Mitchell is almost as expensive as, say, Isaiah Yeo or Payne Haas. So just keep an eye on that. The bench is okay. I really like the starting side. And I was waiting for the catch. The catch is the bench. Okay, so the bench is you've basically different structure here, guys. DC's Footy Fiddlers has gone very heavy starting team and very light on the bench. That can work, right? So there's no wrong strategy in fantasy, but you're relying on 8 guys here to be effective starters and stay in the team for a long period of time to make enough money to be worth selling. That's the big thing. So if half these guys get dropped in round 2 or round 3 or round 4, or they don't get the minutes or don't score the points, then you're in absolute trouble because you have no cash generation. That's the one thing to keep an eye on. So I would say it's a 7.5 out of 10. It's a bold strategy. It can work. Only do this strategy if you are confident in the cash cows. That's the big thing I'll say here. But hey, maybe these guys all come and show out in the trial games. Then we got A Fazix, Miles. So Miles, Aaron Clark again. Aaron Clark at hooker. Good set of forwards. Look, Aaron Clark, I don't think he's going to get the minutes, but he is named to start at lock. He was in that trial game anyway, but didn't get big minutes in that game. Had the laceration, so maybe we can't read into that. The rest of the team here, again, double wing fullback, Latrell Mitchell, Kellen Ponga. You got Dylan Lucas. A lot of investment in the back line here. Mamazella, Smith, Toya, Royce Hunt, McLean. Yeah, okay. The rest, the emergencies are really light. The emergencies probably aren't good enough. I would try and free up another 100K and fix that up. Outside of that, I mean, Aaron Clark is probably where you free up that money. I would sell Aaron Clark and just use the money to improve the bench. The bench is too light for my mind. Outside of that, it's a good team. Like, it's a very good starting side. It's got explosive upside as well as a lot of consistency there too. So I'm going to give this team a 7 out of 10. Just need to fix up that bench. That bench is too light for mine. Max Wilson, so MW. Let's see this team. So another Hopgood team. Guys, keep an eye on Hopgood as well. I'm a Hopgood fan, but racing injury for round 1, new coach. We're going to have to watch the trial games really closely. If the trial games give us any reason for concern, he's too expensive to gamble on. We'll sell him. But if the trial games look good, we'll keep him. So Hopgood's one to keep an eye on. Then for the rest of the team, Metcalf starting. I'm comfortable with that. I think that's good. Wasn't there, but you don't have too many other storms. So you're all right. And then the bench, John Bateman's on the bench there too. I'd bring Toya in over Royce Hunt on the interchange. Rest of the bench is okay. Yeah, it's actually pretty solid. So yeah, this is nice roster construction. If Hopgood is in a good spot, if Papali'i gets the minutes, Gilbert gets the minutes, all that sort of stuff, I like this team quite a bit. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 for this team. I think it's good. I think it's lacking something. I don't know what it is, but just one little bit of punch, a real something different. It'll become more clear towards round one. But Dylan Lucas is a bit of a pod, Hopkins is a bit of a pod. I don't know. I just feel like you could do one more thing to really differentiate this side. Quick reminder too, link in the description if you want to get your team rated. Jump down there, sign up on Casual Athlete Swap, 10-day free trial. So that's super easy. Jump into the Discord and you'll have the private channels available to you where you can submit your team. Also, the Discord link will be below. So if you just want to chat with other fantasy coaches, there's like 1,500 people on our Discord talking fantasy. And we do game day threads as well. So during the games, we have threads that are running all the time. So Aiden up next. And Aiden's team has Harry Grant, Cam Munster. Okay, only the 2 Storm. You can live with that. It is a bit challenging though, right? Because if you have 2 Storm players out round 2 and maybe 1 or 2 injuries, then you're playing Royce Hunt, you're playing Purdue, you're playing Munro. It leaves you in a bit of a dicey spot. So just keep an eye on that. But I think you can do 2. I'm trying to keep it to 1 for my team, but I might end up doing 2. Rolling down the team here, we've got Toya in the starting side, worth keeping an eye on. Then Garrick is another pod. Really solid pod. Yep. Gilbert and Bateman in the back row. Horsburgh there too. Barnett. Need to see trials for these guys. Big question marks in the forward pack, but they're all guys with massive upside. Kelma Taulongi, can he get the start? If he does get the start, he's a great option there as well. Yeah, look, this is a good side. There's a lot of questions in this team, but it's a well-constructed side. I like the balance of it. I like Metcalf being your sort of bench captain there too. The bench is full of guys who can score 40 to 50 plus, or at least your interchange is. So I think this is a nicely balanced roster. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10, pending all these questions. Big questions, though. They're big questions. Then we got Broth. So Broth, a little bit of Broth soup. Let's see this team. We got Fisher, Harris, Watson, Gilbert. Yep. Fogarty's a big pod. So Fogarty is actually pretty cheap compared to how he started last year. So he's cheaper last year, but his first few rounds of last year, pumping out those big scores, comes in. He'll be partnering Ethan Strange again. Strange does not kick the ball. So Fogarty's going to be that dominant half again. Fogarty could be one of the sleeper values at the start of the year. Jack Howarth is theoretically value, but I'm a little bit dicey on Howarth. I just don't know if he's going to be a big improver. The Storm are a great team, and he's a good player. He's a young guy. He should make a leap. I just have a feeling it won't be as meteoric as some people think it will. But at the same time, it's a good bet to take. 450K, it's very cheap. So, closer to round 1, I might end up with Howarth finding his way into my team. Then we got Blaze Talangi is an interesting one. So Blaze is not a huge fantasy scorer, but he is a guy who can create attacking plays. I think he'll play a bit of a passive role at Penrith, but he'll have some big attacking plays that will make up for it. So I view him as he's almost a bit of a winger in how he's going to score, even though he's playing the halves, because it's going to be about run meters, big attacking plays, tackle breaks, all that sort of thing, while Cleary is that dominant half. Rest of the bench here is good. I like the bench. I'm not the biggest Moser guy. I think he's going to be on the bench. So just keep an eye on that. Overall, this is a really nice potty team. I like the construction of it. I like the pods. They're not all guys that I'm picking, but I like the way your head's at. I'm going to go 9 out of 10. I just like where your head's at on this. Just keep it on trials, though. You're going to change this team a lot. But where you are with some of your pods like Fogarty, Fisher Harris, Blaze Talangi, I can see your logic here and I can see how you're building this side. And it's a really good team. All right, Danios, strike ODB. Let's see this team. 100K in the bank is the first thing to note here. Got Harry Grant, hooker, big pod, Isaiah Yo, captain. So the Isaiah Yo and Nathan Cleary combo with also Harry Grant is interesting. Really strong forward pack. Backline Tamale as a starter is tough, but you got Toya on the bench, so you can slide him in if you need to. Turbo, Cobbo, and Yongi. So Cobbo is one who's averaged about 40 points the last few years. I don't see the upside, but Biz rates him. So I'm not going to critique you too hard on Cobbo. I just don't personally think he's going to jump that much. But at the same time, he's got the talent, right? And if Brisbane are good this year, Ben Hunt does feed the edges, and he often leads the league in try assists. So theoretically, Cobbo should jump. He's probably more a guy I'm targeting in draft league, so I don't know if I'll start him in a classic league. Then Turbo's a guy who can go supernova at any time. Bench is really good. Munro's there. I guess the emergencies I'm a bit worried about. So how Tapua, I don't think he'll get the minutes. And Amon, maybe not. But overall, it's a good side. It's a really good side. Actually, I'm going back and I'm seeing that Yo Cleary combo, Harry Grant. Like you've loaded up in big guns and you've sort of filled the spots around them pretty well here. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10. I think this is a really good team. I think you just need to fix a couple of those little bench issues, but it's a good side. It's very potty, maybe even a 9 out of 10. Really good team. Then Josh Muddle. Let's see this team. So for Muds, we've got a pretty good side, actually. Yeah, Kelmar, Bateman, Horsby. Yeah, okay. All the guys we like here. Garrick and Lucas is a center pairing that I haven't seen much of. Then who do we have at wing fullback? Muds. From memory, he had a pretty good set of wing fullbacks. I believe you're a Ponga guy. But remember, it was a pretty balanced wing fullback set. Gilbert Seyfarth. So let's talk about Seyfarth here, because Seyfarth makes sense statistically. He's a 45 average when he starts in the back row and plays big minutes, blah, 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 blah. But is he going to keep that starting role? You know, Ruben Porter is a guy who could theoretically jump into that spot. That worries me a bit. So keep an eye on Seyfarth. And then, yeah, look, Bird, Gilbert, Geimer. It's a very strong bench. It's a really strong bench. It might be a bit too strong, actually, because Sandon Smith, I think he's worth starting in the bench as well if he starts round one. So I would consider potentially moving Garrick on and moving Jack Bird into your starting side and using that cash to upgrade somewhere in the starting team. Maybe Kelmar, Bateman if they don't get the minutes that you expect, or maybe in the wing fullback spot. But overall, really good side. I'm going to go a 8.5 out of 10. I think this is a fantastic team. Corey Mustered. Let's see this team. So for Corey's team, we've got good forward pack, edge back row, waiting on minutes, of course, good halves pairing, good centers. Tuapiki is interesting. So Tuapiki is one to talk about here because Dylan Martinez-Lesniak is out for about 12 weeks. There's a bit of talk that Nickel Klogstad could move to center to cover this, or, you know, other things could happen. And Tuapiki might be into starting fullback. That could make him interesting in fantasy. He had some massive games at fullback last year. Rest of the bench here is pretty light. So Marmazel is sort of the captain there, but it's a very light bench. They're mostly pretty good players. I would just try to not have no money at all sitting on my bench. And that bench is very, very light. So that's the one thing to keep in mind. I don't even know where you'd pull the money from. That's the hard thing, because it is a good side. Also keep an eye on that Storm thing too. So Cam Munster, Harry Grant. Overall, I'll go 8 out of 10. I'm a bit worried about the bench. That's my concern here. But yeah, really good side. There's some good pods here. Tuapiki's a really fun one. Pinjarra Pistons. Love this name, by the way. It feels like a random country towns footy team. So on this side, we've got really strong forward pack. We've got good halves, good centers we've talked about. Wing fullback's good. Bench is solid. The third and fourth interchange spots are guys I don't want in my 17 round one. I'm probably Duffy. I could bring in maybe Toya, but then I like Woods and Puru. They're not going to be there round one in a meaningful way, is my expectation. So you're a bit light on the bench, even though you've got some good guys there. You probably just need to swap them for some other players. I do like the starting side though. I like the starting side. You've managed to fit Cleary and Yo in. I think you need to find some cash to move back to your bench. That's what's going to happen closer to round one. I hate saying this, but I would think about Cleary and Yo and just getting one of them. That's kind of where my head's at. Or maybe downgrading one of Bateman and Papali'i closer to round one, depending on how those pan out. There's a lot of options you've got here. But I would try to move a bit of cash back to your bench. I'll go an 8 out of 10 for this team. I do like the roster. It's interesting. Probably got a bit too much money in your forward pack though. So because Horsburgh's on the bench there, as well as those starters, it's a bit too heavy, and you're leaving yourself a bit exposed on the bench in particular. And Mitchie, let's see this team. So a bit of a different screenshot, but we've got the bench on the left and the team on the right. So for the team, I like the team. I like Barnett. We got Bateman in his new gear. Kelma Talang, if he starts, is good. No Cleary. Okay, so no Cleary and no Isaiah Yo. That's big. That's big. Fogarty, Munster. I mean, who's your captain? Like you haven't. I feel like you don't have a captain in this roster, and you haven't set a captain. So it's backed up by that thought process. You might captain Latrell Mitchell at this rate, which would be absolutely insane. I think you have to. Mitchie, I like. It's different. I've got to give it a 6 out of 10 right now because I just think you need a better captain. But it's a very different side. Aaron Clark, Kobe Hetherington, I think you can get some cash off those guys. You know, Couchman is another one. Tear some cash off them and then upgrade Fogarty, Cleary. that's my advice there. Or upgrade Barnett to Yo, or get it. Hines, whoever it is you want, get a genuine captain. Mine's Cleary, but you can choose your own there as well. I think Cleary is valued this year, and I think you almost have to start with Cleary. So 6 out of 10 for me. And then last thing here, how to join. So guys, if you do want to jump on, that's our reviews. Link below, that is how to jump onto the Casual Athletes WAP, get your team reviewed. You can send your team in. I'm going to do a few of these videos through the preseason. So that is Rate My Team, done and dusted for today.